So you see, students, this muscle right here is a semitendinosus muscle, and this muscle right here is a semimembranous muscle. Both of their origins are the ischial tuberosity, and their actions are they flex the knee, rotate the leg medially, and extends the thigh. The only difference between the two muscles is their insertion. The insertion of the semitendinosus muscle, which is right there, is the medial surface of the tibia, and the insertion of the semimembranous muscle is the medial condyle of the tibia. Alright, so the next set of muscles we're going to learn about is the quadriceps. The first one we're going to talk about is the rectus femoris. It is right here above the quadriceps femoris tendon, and its origin is the spine of the ilium and margin of the acetabulum. Its insertion is the patella bicommon tendon, which continues as patellar ligament to the tibial tuberosity. Its action is it extends the knee. The next muscle we're going to learn about in the knee is the vastus lateralis. That muscle is right here. Its origin is the greater trochanter and posterior surface of the femur. Its insertion is the patella bicommon tendon, which continues as patellar ligament to the tibial tuberosity. It also extends the knee. The next muscle is the vastus medialis. Its origin is the medial surface of the femur. It has the same insertion as the vastus lateralis. It also extends the knee. The last muscle that we're going to talk about in the knee is the vastus intermedius muscle. Its origin is at the anterior and lateral surface of the femur. It has the same insertion as the vastus lateralis and the vastus medialis. It also extends the knee. And if you watch here, you can see how the knee flexes.
We'll talk about its insertion, its action, and the origin. First, we're going to talk about the tibia anterior. Let's look here, right here. Its origin is the lateral condyle and lateral surface of the tibia. The insertion is the tarsal bone and the first metatarsal, and the action is a dorsal flexion and inversion of foot. The extensor digitorum longus has an origin where it is at the lateral condyle of the tibia and anterior surface of the tibula. Its insertion is the dorsal surface of the second and third phalanges of the lateral toes. Third, fourth, right here, here. And its action is dorsiflexion and inversion of the foot. Extends the toes too. Next is the extensor hallucis longus. Its origin is the anterior surface of the fibula, and its insertion is the digital phalanx of the great toe. Right here. And its action is to extend great toe, dorsiflexion, and inversion of the foot. Next is the gastrocnemius. We have two of these, as you can see right here. They are connected at the lateral and medial condyle of the femur, hence the name lateral gastrocnemius and the medial gastrocnemius. Their origin is the posterior surface of the calcaneus, and the action is the plantar flexion of the foot and flexes the knee. Next, we're going to look at the soleus. Right back here, it's just underneath the gastrocnemius. And that origin is the head and shaft of the fibula and the posterior surface of the tibula. Its origin is the posterior surface of the colonus. Excuse me. and the action is a plantar flexion of the foot. Next is the tibialis posterior. This can be found right here next to the leg on the outside. Its location is the lateral condyle and posterior surface of the tibia and posterior surface of the fibula. Its insertion is the tarsal and metatarsal bones, and its action is a plantar flexion and inversion of the foot. Next, we have the plantaris. Its location is to the femur, and its insertion is the calcaneus. Its action is the plantar flexion of the foot and flexes the knee. As you can see here, these muscles connecting, those are called the flexor digitorum longus. Their origin is the posterior surface of the tibia, and their insertion is the distal phalanges of the four lateral toes. Their actions are the plantar flexion and inversion of the foot, and flexes all four lateral toes. Finally, the flexor hallucis longus. You can find that muscle right here. The origin is the posterior surface of the distals 2/3 of the fibula, and its origin is the base of the distal phalanx of the great toe. Its action is it flexes the inner phalanges at the joint and assists the flexion of the metatarsal phalange joint and the plantar flexion of the ankle joint. Well, can you teach us something then?
This is boring.
Put your phones away. Fine. You go to the wall. Okay, pop quiz. Where's your external oblique?
Here,
Where's your internal oblique?
in my inside,
Do you know where the transverse abdominis is?
the train station.
Do you know where the rectus abdominis is?
Right?
No. First of all, your external oblique is located right here on the outer surface of the lower ribs.
Oh, so what's it connected to?
Well, it's connected to the outer lip of the iliac crest.
So what about the other thing you said, the internal ossicle lobes?
You mean
Right.
the internal oblique?
Yeah, what's that?
Well, the origin is located at the crest of the ilium, and the insertion is at the cartilage of the lower ribs.
Oh, so it's just connected to your ribs?
Yeah.
What does that do?
Oh, it's the same as external oblique. Hence the name oblique. It's in the last name.
I see.
Okay, so now the transverse abdominis is not located at the train station.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. It's located at the costa cartilage of the lower ribs.
Like the internal oblique?
Yeah, kind of.
So they work together.
Yes.
Okay. So what's its insertion?
Well, the insertion of the transverse abdominis is located at the linea alba, or the crest of the pubis.
Oh, okay.
And last, now, the rectus abdominis.
Oh, I know what that one is. Right here.
No, the rectus abdominis is located at the crest of the pubis.
Oh. Really?
Yeah. The
Okay.
insertion is at the exvoid process of the sternum.
Oh, so it's right here.
Yep, right here.
And what does it do?
Now, what the rectus abdominis does is it tenses abdominal wall and compresses abdominal contents.
Oh, so they all work together like in a group?
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool. Hey, thanks.
you're welcome.
Have you ever wondered what makes it possible for you too? The hip muscles.
Now I'm going to talk about another hamstring muscle called the semimembranosus. Its origin is also at the ischial tuberosity. The only difference from that and the semitendinosus is that its insertion is the medial condyle of the tibia. It also has the same action, which is flexes knee and hip, and it abducts and rotates thigh medially. Its antagonist is also the quadricep muscle. What I'm going to talk about is the adductor longus. Its origin is the pubic bone near the symphysis pubis, which is right there. Its insertion is the posterior surface of the femur, and its action is to adduct, flex, and rotate the thigh laterally. Its antagonist is the gluteus minimus. What I'm going to talk about now is the adductor brevis. Its origin is at the pubic bone, and its insertion is the posterior surface of the femur, which is right here. And its action is to also adduct, flex, and rotate the thigh laterally, and its antagonist is the gluteus minimus and maximus. The next hip muscle that I'm going to talk about is called the pectineus. Its origin is at the spine of the pubis. Its insertion is the femur distal to the lesser trochanter. And its action is to flex and abduct the thighs. And its antagonist is the gluteus maximus, which is your butt. I'm going to talk about the hamstring muscle called the semitendinosus. Its origin is at the ischial tuberosity, and its insertion is the medial surface of the tibia. Its action is to flex the knees and hips and abducts and rotates the thigh medially. And its antagonist is the quadricep muscle.
Okay, so today I'm going to present to you the gracilis, which is a hip muscle. And that one's right here, right there. Its origin, it's on the lower edge of the symphysis pubis. So, as you can see, it's right connected right there, and that's where its origin. For its insertion, it's the medial surface of tibia, and the tibia is right on the bottom. So, right there. For its action, it abducts thigh, which means brings it to the medial of the body, so brings it in. And flexes knee, so that means when you raise your knee like that. And for the antagonist is the gluteus maximus, which is on this other part, and the gluteus minimus, which is right on top of the gluteus maximus. Okay. Now I'm going to present you the tensor fasciae latae, which is this muscle located on the other side of the femur. And its origin is on the anterior iliac crest, so right there in that part. For its insertion, it's on the iliotibial tract, which is right in the area around there. And for its action, it abducts, which means move away from the medial center of the body. It flexes, so again, raise your leg, and it rotates thigh medially. So you're gonna move your leg that other way. For its antagonist will be the gluteus maximus, located right there. Now we're gonna go on to the adductor magnus, which, as you can see, it's this one right there. For its origin, it's the ischial tuberosity, which is right there, almost by the pubis. And for its insertion will be the posterior surface of the femur, which is right there. And for its action, it abducts the thigh, which means it's going to bring it into the medial of the body. It extends this portion, so I'm going to extend the leg like that. Extend it. Then it's going to flex the thigh, so I'm going to bring it up. And for its antagonist will be the gluteus maximus, which is found on the back of the ilium, on this area right there. Next, we have the gluteus medius, which is right there, and it will be it's gonna be above the gluteus maximus, so there. And for its origin, it's the lateral surface of the ilium. So it's this outer part of the ilium where it's gonna be attached. For its insertion, it's gonna be the greater trochanter of femur, which is this area right there. Then it's gonna, for its action, it abducts, which means it takes it farther from the medial surface of the body and rotates thigh medially. So keep it like that. And for the antagonist, it's gonna be the adductors, which is this group of muscles right there. So now you flex it. That's where your adductors will be. Now we have the gluteus minimus, right there where your thigh will be located. For its origin will be the lateral surface of the ilium, so that will be the border of the ilium right there. For its insertion will be the greater trochanter of femur, and right there you can't really see it, but if you turn it around, will be this part of the femur. Then for its action, it abducts. So that means that you take it away from the medial surface of the body and rotates thigh medially. So move it like that. And as you can see, as I move it, the muscle moves. And for its antagonist will be the lateral rotator group. So, as the name says it, the rotator group will be found right there. It's where everything rotates.
The psoas major, its origin is the lumbar and interval discs and bodies and transverse process of the lumbar vertebrae. Lesser trochanter of femur is the insertion, and the action is that it flexes the thigh. The agonist is the psoas major, and the antagonist is the gluteus maximus. The iliac, its origin is the iliac fossa of the ilium, and it's right here. Its insertion is the lesser trochanter of the femur, so it's like right around there. It flexes the thigh. Its agonist is the iliacs, and the antagonist is the gluteus maximus. Okay, the serratus, the origin is the anterior superior of the iliac spine, so like right around there. And then the insertion is the medial surface of the tibia, right around here. And then its action is that it flexes its knee and hip, abducts and rotates the thigh laterally. The agonist is the serratus, and the antagonist is the gluteus maximus and the minimus. For the gluteus maximus, its origin is the sacrum and the coccyx and the posterior surface of the ilium. The insertion is the posterior surface of the femur and the fascia of the thigh. It extends the hip. And its antagonist is the iliacs, the psoas major and minor. For the biceps femoris, it's located right here, like attached to there. Its origin is the ischial tuberosity in the linea aspera of the femur, so like in here. The insertion is the head of the fibula and lateral condyle of the tibia. The action is that it flexes the knee, and it rotates the leg laterally, and it extends the thigh. The antagonist is the quadriceps muscles. For the rectus femoris, the origin is the anterior inferior iliac of the spine. The insertion is that it inserts into the patellar tendon as one of the four quadriceps muscles. The action is that it has a knee extension and the hip flexion, and the agonist or antagonist is the hamstring.
Alright, today we're going to learn about the rotator cuff. cuff is a group of tendons and muscles located in the shoulder area. It connects the humerus to the scapula, which stabilizes the shoulder. The four main muscles are the supraspinatus, the infraspinatus, and the teres minor, and the subcapularis. The first muscle is the supraspinatus, and that is located in this general area. Its origin is the posterior surface of the scapula above the spine. The insertion is the greater tubercle of the humerus. The action does it abducts the arm. The agonist is the supraspinatus, that you all know is the same thing as the name of the muscle, and the antagonist is the pectoralis major. And now the next muscle is the infraspinatus, and that's located in this area. Its origin is the posterior surface of the scapula below the spine. The insertion is the greater tubercle of the humerus. The action, it rotates the arm laterally. The agonist is the infraspinatus, and the antagonist is the subcapularis. The next muscle is the teres minor, and that's located in this area. The origin is the lateral border of the scapula. The insertion is the greater tubercle of the humerus. The action, it rotates the arm laterally. The agonist is the teres minor, and the antagonist is the infraspinatus. And the last muscle is the subcapularis, which is also, it's behind this, you can't really see it behind this. It's on the inside of the scapula. The origin is the anterior surface of the scapula. The insertion is the lesser tubercle of the humerus. The action rotates the arm medially, and the agonist is the subcapularis, and then the antagonist is the teres.
And now, adding on for Professor Carmen, we're going to learn about the neck and shoulder muscles. First off is the coracobrachialis. Its origin is the coracoid process of scapula. The insertion is the shaft of the humerus. Its action is flexes and adducts the arm. Its agonist is the coracobrachias alis, and antagonist is the posterior deltoid. It's located right here, where it's black. And the other one. The next muscle is the pectoralis major muscle. Right there. The origin of the pectoralis major is the clavicle, sternum, and costal cartilage of the upper ribs. Its insertion is the interbrachial groove of the humerus. The action, it extends, adducts, and rotates the arm medially. Its agonist is the pectoralis major, and its antagonist is the deltoid. It's right here, right where the pecs are at. That's the pectoralis major. Next from the pectoralis major is the teres major. Right there. The teres major's origin is the lateral border of the scapula. Its insertion is the interbrachial groove of humerus. Its action, it extends, adducts, and rotates arm medially. Its agonist is teres major, and its antagonist is the deltoid. The teres major is located right there in the shaded area, right by the scapula. The next muscle is the latissimus dorsi. The latissimus dorsi's origin is the spines of the sacral, the lumbar, and lowest thoracic vertebrae, the iliac crest, and lower ribs. Its insertion is the interbrachial groove of humerus. Its action is it extends, adducts, and rotates the arm medially or pulls the shoulder downward and back. Its agonist is the latissimus dorsi. Its antagonist is the deltoid and trapezius muscle. It's right here. Latissimus dorsi muscle. And the last ones are the deltoid muscle. The deltoid muscle is split up into three parts, the deltoid anterior. And its origin is the acromion process of the spine of the scapula. Its insertion is the deltoid tuberosity of the humerus. Its action, it abducts, extends, and flexes arm. Its agonist is deltoid anterior, and then its antagonist is lower pectoralis muscle. The same goes for the deltoid middle and the deltoid posterior. All of them have the same origin, insertion, action, and agonist, and antagonist. They're located up here. Anterior is front, middle is in the middle, and posterior to the back. And that's all the muscles of the neck and shoulder.
Go.
And now adding on to Professor Torres's with the elbow. The bicep brachii, the origin is the anterior shaft of the humerus. The insertion is the coracoid process of the ulna. The action is flexes elbow. The agonist is the bicep brachii, and the antagonist is the tricep brachii. Now on to the brachialysis. The origin is the anterior shaft of the humerus. The insertion is the ulna. The action, it flexes the elbow, and the agonist is the brachialysis. The antagonist is tricep brachialysis. The brachiocondyles. Its origin is distal lateral end of the humerus. The insertion is the lateral surface of radius. The action, it flexes the elbow. The agonist is the brachialysis. The tricep brachii. The origin, tubercle below glenoid cavity and lateral and medial surfaces of the humerus. The insertion is the olecranon process of the ulna. The action is it extends the elbow. The agonist is the tricep brachial, and the antagonist is the bicep brachial. The pronator, the medial enthnoclinoid of humerus and coracoid process of the ulna is the origin. The insertion is the lateral surface area of the radius. It rotates forearm medially and pronates the hand. The agonist is the pronator teres, and the agonist is the supinator muscle. And now for the pronator quadratus. Interior distal end of the ulna. Its insertion is the anterior distal end of the radius. The action is rotates forearm medially and pronates hand. The agonist is the pronator quadratus, and the antagonist is the supinator muscle. The origin of the supinator muscle is lateral epinoid of the humerus and the crest of the ulna. The insertion is the lateral surface of the radius. The action is rotates forearm medially and pronates